Good morning, everyone, and welcome back to the Daily Halacha. We are learning Shearim B'Tefilah. We are in the chapter dealing with Hahachana, preparation. We're going to finish the chapter today, maybe tomorrow, and then we'll be able to move into the first main chapter dealing with the first language of Tefillah. So we have a fascinating question posed by the author. He says as follows: how is it possible that when we come into davening and we're all ready to daven, that it doesn't work? We don't seem to have the proper focus. He says, "V'lama imkein efshar lanu lahachzik ritzifut hamachshava afilu zman katzar ma'od." Why is it so hard for us to maintain our focus and concentration, even for a short period of time? If we're talking to a friend, and even if a friend is behind a fence or a wall, and the friend is not even engaging in the conversation, if we know that there's someone who's listening to what we're saying, we can go on for hours talking to that person. But when we're talking to God, nifseket hamachshava be'emtza. In the middle, we just sort of lose our focus. Vupela atzum lemit bonein kitzat bazeh. He says it's a wondrous, it's a shocking, surprising thing if you think about it. And actually, he goes on to say something very simple, but which bears repeating, and that is we have to enter into tefillah with the full understanding and belief that we are in a conversation with God. And God is behind the gader, so to speak. God is behind the barrier. We don't see God, but we have a tradition that God is listening to our tefillot. Just like if we know that there's someone behind the partition, if they're listening, we could go on and we could stay focused on what we need to speak to that person about. Similarly, when it comes to God. And so he continues, "V'lachein hachafetz lechavein k'ra'ui b'tfilato va'amal bazeh u'mishtadel ba'atzot lahasiga reishit kol yakdim lavo l'makom tfilato l'shahot u'la'ayin b'ma shomed lasot." Goes back to what he's been saying for this whole chapter. If we want to have proper focus, then we have to come to the place where we're going to daven and focus on what we are about to do. And what we are about to do is have a conversation with God. Do the best we can to sort of remove any other concerns. At least from our side, we have to trust that God's going to do God's part, but from our side, we are ready. And then we will have success, that God will come close to us. We will feel that we are in God's presence because we are focused. We will have divine assistance to focus on God. And just one other point, as I mentioned this briefly yesterday, all of the guidance and concerns that the rabbis had about not davening without proper kavanah and not davening right away but waiting a little bit, that technically is referring to the Amidah. And so he notes that when it comes to Shacharit, Psuke de Zimra, and Shema, and the brachot of Shema, they technically serve the role of giving us time to focus. And when we daven Mincha, Ashrei, which we say before Mincha, that's why it's there, technically serves that purpose of helping us focus, we're supposed to wait a little bit before we say the Amidah. And when it comes to Mariv, we mention Geula, the redemption from Egypt, right before we daven Mariv. Also, something to focus on before we begin the Amidah. That's true technically, but he also notes that all those other things, all those other brachot, all those other tefillot that we say before the Amidah, that's also davening, and that also requires some focus and time to get ourselves in the mindset. And so, umishi yitragel lavo kitzat mukdam uleshahot ba'avodat hamachshava v'tarat halev kodem sheyatchil tfilato al haseder, someone who gets themselves into the habit of coming to shul, or if you're davening at home, spending a few minutes beforehand, focusing mitoch lev panur l'kedusha, with an open heart to holiness, to sanctity. Vadai sheyimtzeh kol tfilotav sedurot lefanav kilchatan. Then all of our davening will be set out properly for us bekavana, with focus, v'tarata machshava kidbai, and with clarity, a purity of thought as is required. We'll do one more thing tomorrow regarding hachana, but we're getting close to the actual beginning of the book. But we can't overstate the importance of taking some time before we start davening to focus on a simple idea that we are about to enter into an audience with God. Have a wonderful day, everybody.